Good morning. This is Tina Wissen. I'm going to give you a few tips on what to do to get started with making the polymer clay pen. If you have any other questions, let me know, but this hopefully will get you ready to go. To start off, just to review some of the basic tools that are useful for polymer clay pen making. Of course, you're going to need the tube size that you want with the bushings, and then this is about the correct size needed for the background clay. I've already added that just to save some time. You see how there's just a slight gap between the top of the clay and the bushing, and then that way you can add the cane and it'll make it flush. Here's a quick overview of all of the cane, including the background clay, which I took a slice of, made it very thin, and then rolled it onto the tube. The water lilies that you wanted, and a few other flowers, including the lily pad. And then, of course, all of the fish. I've made them varying sizes, varying directions, so that it gives it a natural appearance of a pond. Now that I know it's the dimensions that I want, I took the bushings off, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll it smooth with this clear piece of plexiglass, and that way I know that I'm not going to have any lumps or bumps underneath my cane, as well as it helps me to check one last time to make sure that there are no air bubbles. You can usually see an air bubble by a slight indentation or lump on your cane. For instance, there's one. All you have to do is take something sharp, poke a hole in it, press it down, poke a hole in it, press it down, and then roll again. You'll do the same thing if you have any sort of debris that you may have picked up on your cane, and that way you have a nice clean surface ready to go, and you don't have to worry about it afterwards. So here's a close-up of the little water lily, and I'm going to show you how to slice it. I like to use the extremely thin tissue blade. You can see how you can barely tell. It's also fairly flexible. It's great for cutting cane, not so much great for cutting blanks or when you get into the bigger blocks, but for something like this, it works really well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to square it to my blade, and I'm going to gently touch the clay with the sharp end of the blade and press down. Now you see how thin that is. That's still not quite thin enough to put on a pen, but it's a good start. And what I'll have to do is for everything else, including the little fish, the lily pad, everything, I'm going to have to do the same thing. You repeat the process, just making sure that if you distort your image at all, that you make sure that it's round again. You may have to roll it a few times and have it back to the size shape that you want. You may also have to change the size, which you can do by elongating, slowly pulling on each end until you get to the dimensions that you want. Another thing that we talked about, if you don't like this translucent clay around the edges here, all you have to do is take an X-Acto knife and you're able to create a seam so that it can be pulled out. Now this slows down the pen making process, but when it comes to the end result, if you don't like seeing the translucent clay around the edges because it's not clear, it's going to leave a frosted appearance around the cane. Sometimes it's worth going through this extra step and getting yourself ready to go so that all you see is the color part of the cane. Okay, now I have a slice of fish that I'm ready to apply to the cane. I'm going to take the fish, find the place on the tube that I want to put the fish, and then gently start to press down. Now, as you see, it's still raised on there because it hasn't been embedded into the background clay. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue to press down until I get it firmly attached into the cane. Then I'm going to roll until it actually is smooth into the background clay. You can also use the clear plexi, just making sure it's clean, of course, to make sure that the profile of your tube is now level again. And there's our first fish. Now I'll continue depending on the design. I've already cut several fish and flowers and a few other elements. It's going to take a few times for you to figure out how you want to lay things out, but once you get the elements that you want, it's pretty straightforward from that point on. If you have any other questions, let me know.